Come with me.
You need to see this yourself. That's what the older woman, the floor supervisor, said. Soft voice. Careful eyes. Like she already knew what this was going to cost me. I had just paid for our things. My husband had stepped away to take a call near the exit. Nothing unusual. We'd been married for 15 years. 2 kids. A house with a mortgage we'd signed together. I followed her without asking why. Something in my chest already knew. We turned past the fitting rooms and into a narrow back corridor. She pointed to a monitor, live surveillance feed, time-stamped in the corner. And that's when I saw him. My husband. The man whose shirts I still folded. Whose coffee I still made every morning without thinking. He was leaning against the wall in the accessories aisle, phone pressed to his ear, laughing in a way I hadn't seen in years. Low, easy, meant only for whoever was on the other end. His free hand kept running through his hair. A tell I knew better than he did. Her voice came through the speaker, thin through the monitor, but clear enough. Tell her you have a late client. She never questions you anyway. He smiled. I know. She won't even notice. The supervisor looked at me the way women look at each other when words run out. I figured you'd want to know, she said quietly. I nodded. My face didn't move. My hands didn't shake. I walked back out, collected the bags, and when he came around the corner, still glowing from whatever that phone call was, I smiled at him.
Kissed his cheek.
Said nothing. Because he had no idea that I had already started the clock.
Hi.
My name is Avery Cole. And until that moment in that store, I thought I knew what a good marriage looked like. I thought I had won. We drove home in comfortable silence. He put his arm around the center console the way he always did. Hummed to the radio. Picked up our daughter from his mother's house. And that night, I lay beside him, completely still, listening to him sleep, and I made a list. Not of grievances. Not of memories. A list of what I needed to do next. Because the version of me who cried first and asked questions later, she was gone. She left the moment I heard, she never questions you anyway. I need to tell you something about myself. Before I became a full-time mother of 2 and the woman who quietly managed this household, I spent 6 years as a compliance officer for a mid-sized financial firm. I know how to read documents. I know how to build a paper trail. I know what people think they've hidden, and I know how to find it anyway. So I got quiet, and I got organized. Within a week, I had a log, every late night, every rescheduled dinner, every time his phone screen turned face down on the table. I had receipts I'd photographed before he moved them. I had a pattern. Then I called my college roommate. She's a forensic accountant now. We hadn't spoken in 2 years, but the moment I told her what I needed, she said, "Give me 48 hours." She didn't need 48. By the next evening, I had bank statements showing small, consistent transfers, our joint savings, moving into an account I'd never seen. The account was registered under a business name. The business had no website, no address, no employees. The business had her initials. Hi again. Avery Cole. Learning, in real time, the particular silence of a betrayal you can't unhear. I didn't rage. I didn't confront him at dinner. I didn't send a dramatic text at midnight. I called a family law attorney. She was the kind of woman who'd seen everything and pitted nothing, which was exactly what I needed. We opened a case file. We built a timeline. We identified every marital asset, every joint account, every property deed. Then I had one very specific conversation with our mortgage broker. The house, the one I'd negotiated, chosen, decorated, and maintained, had my name as primary borrower. A small detail my husband had never bothered to understand. He assumed because he earned more, that it was his. He was wrong about a lot of things. 3 days later, I arranged a meeting. I told him it was about refinancing. Something boring he'd normally delegate to me anyway. I booked a small conference room at a business center downtown.
Clean.
Neutral. Forgettable. She arrived first. I watched her from across the lobby. Put together, younger than I'd imagined, looking at her phone with the particular ease of someone who doesn't expect consequences. He arrived 4 minutes later. They didn't touch, but the way they stopped walking when they saw each other told me everything I needed to confirm. I stood when they entered. "Sit down," I said. Not unkindly. Just clearly. They sat. Avery Cole again. And no, I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I'd done all of that alone weeks ago, in the car outside our daughter's school, where no one could see me. By the time I sat across from them, I was simply a woman with a folder. I slid it across the table. Bank statements, transfer logs, account registration documents, a photograph, time-stamped 3 minutes after I'd seen him on that monitor, taken from the store system, obtained legally through my attorney. She looked at the folder and didn't open it. I can explain, she started. I'm not here for an explanation, I said. I'm here to close a chapter. He leaned forward. His voice was the careful, measured tone he used when he thought he still had leverage. Avery, you don't have to do this here. You didn't have to do any of this. And yet, I stood. I told him the joint accounts had been flagged for review, that the house was not, in fact, in his name in the way he believed, that I had already filed for separation, and that my attorney would be reaching out to his by end of business. Then I looked at her. The money he moved for you came from accounts I funded. My attorney has already drafted the recovery claim. I'd suggest speaking to someone before the week is out. I picked up my bag and walked out. Neither of them followed. What they didn't know was that someone else had already been quietly working on my behalf. My older sister, Dana, 10 years a family law attorney, mother of 3, a woman who has never once in her life let anything slide, had flown in 2 nights before. I hadn't even finished the sentence when I called her. She just said, "Don't post anything. Don't text him anything. Send me what you have, and I'll be there Thursday." And she was. By Friday morning, we had emergency asset protection orders in place. Custody arrangements preemptively outlined. A full legal strategy that assumed he would try to move fast once he realized what was happening. Dana looked at me across the conference table and asked, "Are you doing this to hurt him or to protect yourself?" I didn't hesitate. To protect my kids. And then myself. He's a distant third. She nodded once.
Good.
Then let's finish this, right? That weekend, he came to the house and found the locks had been changed. He stood on the front porch for a long time. Called my phone 4 times. I watched the notifications appear and disappear. Our son asked why Daddy was ringing the doorbell. I told him Daddy forgot his key and was going to stay somewhere else for a little while. My son accepted this without question. Children often understand more than we say and less than we fear. What happened next, I didn't plan. But I also didn't stop it. Dana had pulled something I hadn't asked for. A restraining order. Filed 4 years ago. Different city. Different woman. Same patterns, financial control, isolation, pressure. The case had been settled quietly, buried under an NDA that apparently hadn't reached the right people. It reached mine. I sat with that file for a long time. I'm not going to tell you exactly what I did with it because some things belong to the woman who filed it first, not to me. But I will tell you that the people who needed to know knew. His voicemail to me, the night everything unraveled, was almost 9 minutes long. It started with justification, shifted to bargaining, collapsed into something that sounded almost like grief, which I might have believed once. At the end, his voice went quiet and he said, "You were supposed to be on my side." I deleted the message without replying. I was in the kitchen making lunches for the next day. My daughter was doing homework at the table. My son was laughing at something on TV in the next room. This was my life. This was what I was protecting. He asked to meet me, eventually. Neutral ground. No lawyers. I agreed. Not because I owed it to him, but because I needed to see if I could sit across from him without losing the steadiness I'd worked so hard to find. He looked tired, smaller than I remembered somehow. "I never thought you'd do all of this," he said. "I know," I said. "That's the part you got most wrong about me." He pushed a photograph across the table. Our wedding day. Both of us laughing at something just off frame, neither of us looking at the camera. "I don't know what I was thinking," he said. I stopped seeing you." I looked at the photo for a moment. "You didn't stop seeing me," I said. "You started assuming me. There's a difference." I folded the photograph and put it in my bag, not because I wanted it, but because our kids might want it someday. He asked if I would ever forgive him. I stood up and I told him the truth. I already did. That's how I was able to leave. I drove home with the windows down. Not because everything was fine. It wasn't. There were still months of paperwork ahead, still mornings that would be hard, still a conversation I'd need to have with my children that no script could prepare me for. But I drove home to a house that was mine, to two kids who were safe and fed and loved, to a version of myself I hadn't met until I needed her most. The difference between collapsing and rebuilding is not strength. It's deciding, quietly, without an audience, in the back of a store with a surveillance monitor, that you are worth the effort it takes to start over. I had already decided, and I had already started.